I'm glad you're here at Beyond 60 Stories, where every life has a story to tell. When I was 81, I received a diagnosis that rearranged my sense of time in a way nothing else ever had. Cancer has a way of doing that. It does not shout, it does not argue. It simply narrows the horizon and asks a question you can no longer postpone. How do you want to live the time that remains? There is a decision I made after that diagnosis. A decision that felt simple once it was made, but painfully obvious only in hindsight. It was not about fighting harder or holding on longer. It was about letting go of the way I had been living on autopilot and choosing presence over postponement. I wish I had made that decision years ago when time still felt generous and forgiveness felt automatic. In today's video, we're exploring what serious illness reveals about love, time, and the quiet choices we keep delaying until something forces our attention. We'll look at the beliefs that kept me waiting, the patterns that felt responsible but were quietly costing me, and the decision that finally shifted how I chose to live and love. Before we continue, take a moment to tap the like button and subscribe to Beyond 60 Stories. This channel exists to hold reflections shaped by lived experience, not advice, not urgency, just honest stories, shared slowly for those who know that wisdom often arrives later than we expect, when illness removes the illusion of time. For most of my life, time felt expandable, not endless, but generous enough to forgive delay. I believed there would always be space to adjust my priorities later, to soften my pace, to show up more fully when circumstances finally allowed it. This belief did not come from denial. It came from habit. Life teaches us to move forward, not inward, and rewards us for endurance more than awareness. When illness enters the picture, it does not bring new information as much as it removes old assumptions. The most powerful thing cancer took from me was not strength or comfort, but the illusion that tomorrow would always feel similar to today. Suddenly, time was no longer something I could borrow from. It became something I had to account for. And in that accounting, I saw how often I had postponed the parts of life that mattered most to me. I had loved many people well in practical ways. I showed up reliably, I stayed steady, I fulfilled responsibilities, but I had also delayed intimacy with life itself. I often chose efficiency over presence, caution over curiosity, and routine over meaning. None of these choices felt wrong while I was making them. They felt responsible, they felt adult. Yet responsibility, when it is never questioned, can quietly become avoidance. Illness creates a kind of clarity that comfort rarely does. It strips away the false urgency of things that once demanded attention and exposes what has been quietly neglected. I realized that I had been living as if life would eventually slow itself down for me, instead of recognizing that slowing down is a decision. Presence does not arrive on its own. It has to be chosen, often against momentum. The decision I made after my diagnosis was not dramatic. I did not abandon everything or rewrite my identity overnight. I chose something smaller and far more difficult. I chose to stop postponing presence. I chose to treat each conversation, each moment of quiet, each expression of affection as something complete rather than provisional. I stopped living as if meaning would arrive later and started meeting it where I was. What I regret is not the life I lived before, but the assumptions I carried through it. I assumed time would always soften regret. I assumed love would understand delay. I assumed awareness could wait until conditions improved. Illness revealed that waiting has a cost, and that cost is often invisible until there is no longer room to ignore it. This lesson is not about fear. It is about honesty. Time does not announce its limits. It reveals them quietly, often through circumstance. When those limits become visible, we are offered a choice. We can cling to the habits that once felt safe, or we can begin to live with intention even if it feels unfamiliar. I chose intention. I only wish I had known earlier that it was available all along. Lesson 2. The hidden cost of living on autopilot. Most lives do not drift away because of bad intentions. They drift because of momentum. Days fill themselves. Routines harden. repay, and gradually, life begins to run on habits that were once chosen consciously, but are now maintained without reflection. Autopilot feels efficient, even responsible, because it reduces friction. It keeps things moving, but what it quietly removes is presence. Living on autopilot does not mean you are careless. It often means the opposite. You show up, you meet expectations, you stay reliable, yet reliability, when it becomes the main measure of a life, can crowd out attention. You begin to move through conversations without fully arriving, to say yes without checking inward, to postpone meaning because function seems urgent. Nothing feels wrong enough to stop, and so nothing changes. The danger of autopilot is not that it makes life empty, it makes life postponed. Meaning is always deferred to a later season, a calmer time, a moment when responsibilities lighten. Love is assumed to understand delay. Time is assumed to be flexible, and because this assumption is rarely challenged, it becomes invisible. Autopilot does not announce itself as loss. It disguises itself as normal. What illness reveals without needing to be named is that presence does not appear automatically when time becomes limited. Presence is a muscle. If it has not been practiced, urgency alone does not create it. Many people discover that when they finally want to live more fully, they have to relearn how to be attentive, how to choose deliberately, how to slow down without feeling guilty. This relearning can feel uncomfortable because it interrupts patterns that once felt safe. Autopilot also reshapes love. When life is managed rather than inhabited, affection becomes procedural. You care, but you do not always connect. You communicate, but you do not always reveal. You are there, but not entirely present. Over time, relationships become stable but thin. They function well but feel less alive. This is not because love has faded, but because attention has been rationed. Breaking autopilot does not require dramatic change. It requires interruption. Interruption of assumptions, of default responses, of the belief that meaning will wait. Small choices made deliberately can begin to restore presence. A conversation taken seriously, a moment allowed to be complete, a decision made without postponement. These are not grand gestures. They are acts of attention. If this reflection resonates with you, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. When did you first notice that life had begun to run automatically? And what helped you interrupt that pattern? Even briefly, your reflection may help someone else recognize a moment they are still moving through without noticing. Lesson 3. How love changes when time is no longer. Abstract. When time feels abundant, love often spreads itself thin. It assumes there will be more chances to speak carefully, more opportunities to show up fully, more moments to repair what was missed. I lived most of my life with that assumption, and it shaped how I loved the people closest to me. I was present but not always attentive. I cared, but I often delayed expression, believing there would be a better moment later. After my diagnosis, something subtle but irreversible shifted. Time stopped feeling theoretical. It became specific. Mornings mattered. Conversations mattered. Silence carried weight. I noticed how often I had treated affection as something that could wait, as if love were a savings account I could draw from later, instead of a practice that required regular attention. There was one relationship in particular that came sharply into focus, not because it was broken, but because it had been handled gently for so long that honesty had been postponed. We had learned to keep things pleasant. We avoided depth that might disturb the rhythm we had grown used to. Nothing was wrong, yet something essential had been missing. When time became visible, I realized how much love I had wrapped in caution. The decision I made was not dramatic. I did not make speeches or demand change. I chose presence. I chose to speak when I felt something instead of waiting for the perfect wording. I chose to listen without multitasking my attention. I chose to treat each interaction as complete, not provisional. This changed the quality of love immediately, not because it created intensity, but because it removed delay. Love, under the pressure of limited time, becomes honest, not harsh, but clear. It no longer tolerates emotional procrastination. You stop assuming people know how you feel. You stop trusting silence to carry meaning. You realize that affection left unexpressed is not preserved. It fades quietly, even in stable relationships. What surprised me most was how little was required to deepen connection once I stopped postponing it. A sentence spoken plainly, a moment of undivided attention, a willingness to sit with discomfort rather than smooth it over. These were not new skills, they were simply neglected ones. Time had not taken them away. Habit had not. This shift did not make love heavier, it made it lighter. When you no longer carry unsaid things forward, you stop dragging the past into the present. Each conversation feels cleaner. Each interaction stands on its own. Love becomes something you inhabit, not something you manage. Looking back, I regret how often I treated time as a cushion rather than a boundary. I regret how gently I postponed what mattered. Illness did not teach me how to love. It reminded me that love, like life, asks to be lived now, not emptying for later. In the next part, we will step away from story and look closely at the decision itself, not as a response to illness, but as a choice available to anyone who is willing to stop waiting and begin living with intention. Lesson 4. Choosing life instead of waiting for permission. Many people believe that major decisions require permission, either from circumstances, from others, or from time itself. They wait for a clear signal that it is finally appropriate to change how they live, how they love, or how they spend their remaining energy. This waiting often feels responsible, it feels measured. Yet waiting, when practiced too long, quietly becomes avoidance. The decision I wish I had made years ago was not about changing everything at once. It was about stopping the habit of postponement. Postponement disguises itself as patience. It tells you that there will be a better moment to speak honestly, a calmer season to choose differently, a future version of yourself who will finally have the courage or clarity to live more fully. But that future version rarely arrives. Life continues, habits deepen, and waiting becomes the default posture. Not choosing life is not about urgency or intensity. It is about orientation. It means deciding that the present moment deserves your full attention, even when it is ordinary, even when it is uncomfortable. It means recognizing that love does not grow stronger through delay, and meaning does not become clearer through avoidance. They grow through engagement. When people hear this, they often imagine drastic change, but the most powerful shifts are quiet. They appear in how you speak when something matters instead of staying polite, in how you listen without planning your response, in how you say no without apology and yes without postponement. These choices do not disrupt life, they clarify it. Waiting for permission often comes from fear of consequence, fear that honesty will cost you harmony, fear that choosing yourself will appear selfish, fear that changing late in life will look impractical or unnecessary. Yet what illness reveals and what age confirms is that the greater cost lies in not choosing at all. A life lived cautiously may appear stable, but it often carries a quiet heaviness that clarity would have relieved. Choosing life means accepting that not every choice will be perfectly received. It means trusting that love grounded in truth is more durable than love preserved by silence. It means understanding that presence is not something you earn through endurance, but something you practice through attention. And it means recognizing that no one arrives at the end of life wishing they had waited longer to live honestly. As I reach the end of this reflection, there is no single lesson I want to leave you with, only a quiet clarity that took me most of a lifetime to understand. Life does not suddenly reveal its meaning at the moment we are ready. It reveals itself only when we stop postponing our attention. Illness did not change who I was. It removed the illusion that I had more time to delay the way I wanted to live and love. What remains, after fear settles and urgency fades, is a simple question. How present are we willing to be while we are still here? Not in dramatic moments, but in ordinary ones. In conversations that seem familiar, in relationships that feel stable, in days that pass without announcement. These are the places where life actually happens and where it is most easily missed. I wish I had understood earlier that waiting does not protect us. It only softens the edges of regret until we no longer recognize it as regret at all. Choosing presence, choosing honesty, choosing to love without delay does not require permission from age or circumstance. It only requires willingness. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Beyond 60 Stories. This channel exists to honor lived experience, to slow things down, and to share the kind of wisdom that only time can shape. Dot and I would truly like to hear from you. What decision do you wish you had made earlier, or what choice are you finally allowing yourself to make now? If there is a story or a topic you would like us to explore next on this channel, please share it in the comments below. Your voice is part of this journey too.